Salwete everyone! In this video I'm going to carry on from our lesson on forming adjectives and adverbs, talking about how they are compared. So you should remember from year 9 the 3 degrees of comparison. So the first form is positive, the second form is comparative, and the third form is superlative. So if we look at this in a visual way, we have something like big for the positive form, bigger or more big for the comparative form, and biggest, most big, very big for the superlative form. We already know how to do this with adjectives, so we'll take 3 examples in their positive forms. So lightos meaning happy, pravos meaning evil, and brevos meaning short. To make them comparative, we need to add the ending ior to them. So lightos becomes lightior, pravos becomes pravior, and brevos becomes brevior. So that ior translates as more, or rather in English. To make them superlative, they have a double consonant in them, and then an imos, ima, imum ending, and so on. So lightos becomes lightissimos, pravos becomes pravissimus, and brevus becomes brevissimus. So we can translate this as est, most something, or very something. There are a few adjectives which are irregular, and so they do not follow this pattern. So these ones you need to note down and be able to recognize them in context. So if we look at them, these are also irregular in English. So bonos means good, and just like in English how we don't say gooder, we say melior in Latin, and then optimus, which for the best or excellent. Malos, bad, goes to peor for worse, and pessimos for the worst. Magnos, meaning big, goes to maior for bigger, and maximus for biggest. And pauvos for small goes to minor for smaller, and minimus for the smallest. Finally, multos, meaning many, goes to plus for more, and then plurimus for very many. So these forms are irregular. You do need to better recognize them, and do note that they are also irregular in English if that helps you remember them, or a lot of them are irregular in English. Adverbs, just like we looked when we formed them, they're nice because they don't have heaps of endings that we need to worry about. So you'll remember that adverbs are formed from adjectives in 2 ways. Either if they're group 1, they add an e, so lightos becomes lighte, and pravos becomes prave. Otherwise, if they're group 2 adjectives, they add an eter for the adverbial form. They always end in ios for the comparative form, so lightios, pravios, and brevios. In the superlative form, they take that the same form as their adjective, but they end in an e. So we've got lightissime for happiest, pravissime for evilly, most evilly, and brevissime for most shortly. These forms are quite obscure, and you may not actually ever meet them in your Latin career, but it's good to know how they're formed. Just like those adjectives, irregular adjectives we met, they also have irregular adverbial forms. So again, looking at them in the positive, comparative, and superlative forms, and again these ones are often irregular in English as well. We've got bene for well, melius for more well or better, optime for best or most well, male badly, peos worse, pessime worst, magnopere for greatly, magis more greatly, maxime most greatly, paulum for little or a bit, minos for less, and minime, which you'll recognize as the word for no, is not at all. And finally, multum is much or a lot, plus is more, and plurimum is most. So again, just be aware of these and make sure that you can recognize them and translate them. So just to recap, here are the key points for this video. Number 1, there are 3 degrees of comparison: The normal form of adjectives and adverbs we know is the positive, the next is the comparative, followed by the superlative. To form comparative adjectives, we need an eor in them, and comparative adverbs have eos at the end. The superlative is formed with a double consonant, often a double s, so this issimos ending for the adjective and issime for the adverb. There are also a few irregulars in both the comparative and superlative forms that you should learn and be able to recognize.